Hey everyone, if you like what we do, make sure to give us a follow and a like on Apple Podcasts. That way, if you like what we do, you can support us that way and we can keep talking about what we love. And that's animation and giving out actual proper respect to animation. And now, on with the show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host this evening. Joining me, as always, is the guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And today we are, albeit a bit on the late side, but we're finally giving out awards for the year of 2021 in animation. But before we get too deep into that, we also have a couple trailers to discuss. So, Cameron, what do you got?
This week was a very bountiful gaggle of trailers for some unknown reason. Well, it was just interesting. We got 3 trailers to talk about. First up are the shorts for Ice Age Scrat Tales, the very last thing that Blue Sky Studio ever made before Disney unjustly shut them down. You know, seeing this right after the adventures of Buck Wild, it's a real slap to the face. And I'm not really that kind of person to say such things, but it's Disney. They can take the hits. They'd be pretty pathetic if they couldn't. This is insulting. Not the short themselves. The shorts look amazing. Again, Blue Sky was so good with their comedic animation with Scraps. It's just so sad to see this be the last thing from the famed studio. I mean, granted, I hope Disney, in a very small bit of hope and optimism, can actually finish Nimona. But, these look cute. They look very funny. And as the Ice Age films went on, Scrap was the best thing about those films.
Even in the weaker movies like Continental Drift and Collision Course, still my favorite thing about those were the Scrat scenes. And something that this trailer at least reminds me of, the dynamic between Scrat and Baby Scrat, it's kind of like Mindy and Buttons from Animaniacs.
Oh, I could see that.
That genre of father or guardian looking after a rambunctious little one.
Yeah. Though it is kind of funny that Scrat, even with taking care of this little baby Scrat, is willing just to ditch him just to get the acorn. And it's funny that the baby Scrat is also wanting the acorn as well. So they're both willing to stab each other in the back. And then Mother Nature's just like, oh, both of you are going to suffer.
Because, they can't win in the end.
No, I just love the distance they go with the jokes. Like when Scrat gets flung into the ice water and then gets flung into the ground, and then the ground is hanging above a thing of lava, and then it's just really cute. And they're coming out on April 13th. R.I.P. Blue Sky. I wish y'all had a better fate than whatever the heck happened,
Amen.
Next up for Netflix, we finally got a teaser for The Sea Beast, which is going to be directed by Chris Williams, who worked on Moana, Big Hero 6, and Bolt. This looks great. The animation is being done by Sony Pictures Imageworks, so it's not just Netflix animation. And we also had a cast announcement alongside the teaser.
Carl Urban, Dan Stevens, Jared Harris, Kathy Burke, Marianne John de Baptiste, and Zaris Angel Hader. That's an awesome cast for what looks like an awesome swashbuckling adventure film. Something I don't think we've really had in animation since, The Adventures of Tintin.
Sinbad as well, from way back in 2003 or so, I think.
Both of those are kind of the best examples of movies just in general that I want to see more of.
Yeah, I like that the monsters do visually represent the old visual representations of what they thought were in the ocean. And I think my favorite detail is the town is shaped like the compass on a map.
Oh, that's cool.
And I like the human designs, and this could just be because it's a teaser trailer. I like that they're not going the route of marketing directly and only to kids.
When it comes to trailer marketing, studios really do a piss poor job of making animated films for families look unappealing to those except for the target demographic.
Sometimes films that are either better or worse than the trailer are like made to look worse. Like I remember 2018 had this issue a lot, or at least it popped up more than once with Sherlock Gnomes had an awful trailer.
Oh
And
God, I remember that.
And then you watch the movie and it's like all of that stuff was not in the movie. It's still a bad movie, but okay. And then with Smallfoot, it was making it look a lot goofier than it was. Not to say that Smallfoot is not goofy. It's really silly and funny a lot of the times, but still. And here it's just like it's a very timeless feel, very like ageless. Anyone could watch this movie and enjoy it. I hope they do not back out of that mindset with the Sea Beast, with their official trailer, and how we're going to be getting it in July. That's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to see it. Netflix has quite possibly the most stacked year for animation because they have Pinocchio from Del Toro, Wendell and Wild, The Sea Beast, Apollo 10 and a Half, A Space Age Childhood, which is really good. I highly recommend watching it. Well, and then My Father's Dragon from Cartoon Saloon. It's like, if Disney are not careful, Netflix could take up way more of the space. And 2022 is already a really stacked year, especially since we're getting that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And I just like seeing how healthy this year is. It's going to be a bloodbath for the Annies and the Oscars if we ever decide to take the Oscars seriously again.
We'll talk about that more in a second, but we have one more trailer to discuss.
I don't know. Do you think the movie actually exists?
Honestly, that's a good question.
I mean, the trailer's here for Minions: The Rise of Gru, but until it actually hits theaters, just like Morbius, I'm waiting until it's actually out to believe it. I mean, not to say that it looks bad. Illumination's animation is getting so good, and they are going down a more cartoony route than other studios, and I like that. They're not producing cheap-looking movies.
I don't think many casual animation fans can really gauge the quality just by the production budget.
I think the thing is, a lot of animation fans have a very narrow gauge of what is good and bad. It's too one way or the other. There's a gradient. It's a lot more nuanced than you think. A lot of people complained about that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish trailer because it had that lower frame rate situation at some point, and it's like, that's an artistic decision. That's not like a fault on the budget or the filmmaking. Or it's just like how the thing is, I think after Norman and North dared to go, get into theaters, everyone is just kind of like, okay, we won't let something like that hit theaters again. We promise you. Most of the time, it's more of an art style execution thing to me than, oh, this just looks cheap or unfinished or unrendered or whatever.
Want to know a great example of this? The second trailer for DC's League of Super Pets, it looks exponentially better than the first. I think I saw both of them in theaters, and you can really tell the difference.
And as for the film for Minions: The Rise of Gru, I mean, yeah, you can joke that they probably put in the best parts within the movie anyway, like in the trailer, like how they do with a lot of their trailers. I know that's like a harsh thing to say about them, but it's kind of true. Sometimes they do put their best parts in the marketing.
You're not wrong.
I'm not as harsh on Illumination as other people. I think the YouTube community has gone extremely like way too intense and mean spirited on them. I just wish they had better stories telling and writing. The interesting thing about the first Minions film is that a lot of it was told through visual storytelling with very little dialogue. And unfortunately, it seems like they kind of backpedaled on that. Now there's just too much talking. And that kind of takes away the charm of first film. Even though I do love the cast members and the villain names like Nunchuck and Jean Claude. And it was kind of fun to see Michelle Yao pop in as Master Chow. She's having a great year so far.
I cannot wait to see Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, I'm planning on seeing that on Tuesday. Well, as we record this on Tuesday. But it looks fun. The Rise of Gru looks like a solid time, and sometimes that's all you need from like a movie. Like just to go in, get away for an hour and a half or so, and then leave and then be better. So I don't know where I'm going to fall with this one. My respect and admiration for the Despicable Me films is kind of on a uneven ratio. Like I'll like some things about one movie, then not like anything else about it, or something like that, if that makes sense.
I hear you. For me, I think creatively the series peaked with Despicable Me 2. I think that one has like the funniest jokes, like the best villain too, probably. Even like the minions themselves, especially once they turn like evil, get like just the biggest laugh for some of the stupidest reasons. After that, like I enjoyed Minions as like a silly kind of throwback to the Looney Tunes style humor. Despicable Me 3, it was good, but it was way too overstuffed. I'm hoping that Rise of Gru is more of a return to like Despicable Me 2 in terms of balancing the story with the humor and not trying to fit in too many subplots.
Yeah, it kind of looks like the story is fairly stuffed already, with Gru having to deal with the Vicious Six, and then he gets captured apparently, and then that's when the minions have to go save him, which I assume is going to happen early on in the movie, because otherwise it's going to feel a little unfocused. But I did like the scene where they try to do the karate chopping a board with your head.
That moment got the biggest laugh.
That part was great. It's like, oh, Kevin. And then he just uses Kevin as the way to destroy the board. But, it looks fine. I don't think it's going to be that irritating of a film as long as it just knows what it wants to do. I agree with you on Despicable Me 3. I loved the idea of the two brothers and how they grew up differently, and yet they didn't do anything with it. And then they just had other characters do very direct-to-video Disney stuff that didn't really add anything to the overall story. And like, I don't want Illumination to try to copy Pixar or Disney. I want Illumination to tell a really rock solid story without feeling like they have to fall back into more childlike focus. And to be fair, these movies are mostly aimed at kids, but also, animation is for everyone. So you can't really use that excuse. Speaking of, let's talk about 2021 in general. Let's start with the lineup of films that both of us have seen. And I'm going to go through this very quickly because between the two of us, we've seen 76 animated films.
Good Lord.
This includes TV specials, the direct-to-video DC films. So let's just go through this quickly. We saw Belle, The Mitchells versus the Machines, Josie the Tiger and the Fish, The Summon of the Gods, Encanto, Words Bubble Up Like Soda Pop, The Bears' Famous Invasion of Sicily, Calamity, Popello Chimney Town, Fortune Favors Lady Nikuko, Luca, New Gods Neza Reborn, SEAL Team, Joseph, Raya and the Last Dragon, Flea, Vivo, The Legend of Hay, Hilda and the Mountain King, Wish Dragon, Bombay Rose, Zhang Jia, The Witcher, Nightmare of the Wolf, Demon Slayer, Mugen Train, Batman The Long Halloween Part 1 and Part 2, Green Snake, Back to the Outback, My Little Pony, A New Generation, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, Thrice Upon a Time, The Stranger by the Shore, My Sunny Mod, The Monkey King Reborn, Ron's Gone Wrong, Arlo the Alligator Boy, America the Motion Picture, Batman, Soul of the Dragon, Rumble, The Prince's Voyage, Justice Society, World War II, Nahuel and the Magic Book, Mosley, Crypto Zoo, Sing 2, Bob Spit, We Do Not Like People, Extinct, My Hero Academia World Heroes Mission, Stand By Me, Doraemon 1 and 2, Bright, Samurai Soul, Mortal Kombat Legends, Battle of the Realms, Little Vampire, Boss Baby, Family Business, Earwig and the Witch, Spine of the Night, Sword Art Online, the movie Progressive, Aria of a Starless Night, SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, Even Mice Belong in Heaven, Jungle Beat the movie, Paw Patrol the movie, Secret Magic Control Agency, Dream Builders, Ape Star, The Addams Family 2, Injustice, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Charming, Bigfoot Family, Space Jam: A New Legacy. Yeah, we're counting it as animation. Spirit Untamed, Dragon Rider, Doggone Trouble, Night of the Animated Dead, Monster Hunter, Legends of the Guild, Zico's Journey, and Lava. And that's just a handful of what got released in the US. There's a whole world of animation. So, now then, what would you say overall of what you thought about 2021?
This was a bountiful year, not just in terms of volume, but a variety of genres, of different studios come into play. Even like cool sort of mixed media projects like Joseph and Flea, movies that are not what you would usually see in like mainstream animation, but stories about like real people, but using animation to
tell a story.
Yeah, exactly.
2021 felt like a course correct from 2020 because everything got delayed or put on demand or given to Netflix in 2020 or, Disney Plus or Apple Plus. 2021 was just like, I am sorry, here are all the movies and we're going to make sure they actually come out, barring however the pandemic was at that point in time. There was also a bigger push for streaming services like Netflix to start picking up on either bigger or smaller animated films. Like they got The Summon of the Gods, but they also brought over SEAL Team and Wish Dragon and Bombay Rose. Funimation, well, what used to be Funimation, RIP, they were able to really get some good victories in with their theatrical film releases with Demon Slayer, Mugen Train, Josie the Tiger and the Fish, The Stranger by the Shore, and My Hero Academia. And that was very interesting to see before, they got swallowed up into Crunchyroll.
Mm-hmm.
And China had a very good year because we got The Green Snake, Zhang Jia, The Legend of Kaye, and New Gods, Neza Reborn. And while the virtual theater experience was bountiful, it was a sign of things to come that a lot of the festivals and releases were regressing back into like, you better see this and risk your health. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the one thing I wasn't really a fan of. The regressing back to exclusivity. It leaves like people who are disabled or those who live in small either suburbs or rural areas, people who like don't live anywhere close to the major metropolitan areas. They're just kind of all left in the dust.
Well, it shined a real light of festivals are very class-based elitist nonsense. I get why some of them are like that, with like the Cannes and the Venice Film Festival. I understand that. but it wouldn't hurt. The people who love movies are willing to spend the money for virtual theater experiences. People want to see these movies, and yet they're locked because of multiple reasons. And a lot of it is also financial. I would love to go to Annecy and to Cannes, but I'm not going to be able to afford it. So I'm just going to have to be like pick and choose. Like, thank goodness Fantastic Fest is in my home city, and I'll just invest into going to Animation as Film. But like, the rights holders need to get over the fact that the theatrical experience is not what it used to be, and they need to be more open to letting people see these movies. And you know what? If you're worried about pirating, I get it. I'm not in support of pirating, but this is how you're going to get more pirating. I mean, I understand if there are legal situations like with region locking and such, but even then, so many people are having to still wait to see Innuo. It's frustrating to see the theatrical film experience kind of, it's in a tight spot, because I love going to the theaters. Even with this pandemic like going on, I was happy to go see Belle twice, and I loved seeing Encanto in theaters. But I wish they kept going with the virtual theater experience, especially with film festivals. Again, people want to see these films, but when you don't give them access to them, sometimes some of these films don't even come out the same year. They sometimes come out like years later.
Mm-hmm.
And that's frustrating, because everyone should have a right to see a lot of these movies.
Especially now that like the streaming wars have really ramped up, it makes even less sense for film festivals to retain this like strict exclusivity. If you're worried about like, say, general audiences kind of missing out on the theatrical experience, if you've seen homes with like big 75-inch screens, I don't think that's going to be as big of a problem as they think. As the years go by, all of the classic excuses for why film festivals are as like tight as they still are, like, these excuses are holding less water by the hour.
Another thing I picked up on were like how like diverse the animation offerings were. We had a lot of different age group like offerings. Like, we had like the more adult stuff with like the Summon of the Gods and Josie the Tiger and the Fish. We had stuff for kids like SEAL Team, or aimed, mostly marketed for young kids, like the Paw Patrol film and what have you. But there was definitely more adult animation on offerings. Like, we had Spine of the Night, Mortal Kombat Legends, Bright Samurai Soul, Crypto Zoo, Prince's Voyage, My Sunny Maud, The Witcher, Nightmare of the Wolf, and like Joseph. And that's really cool, because I mean, I guess that we got to talk about it. Everyone said it. The most recent Oscars were a disaster. Not even putting into the equation the whole slap incident, or the fact that they promised to try to trim it down from like to like not 3 hours, but then it went overtime.
That's the thing. They said they were going to cut out 8 of the awards, and yet doing so the way the show ran, it still ended up one of the longest broadcasts.
And it was one of the worst. Like, golly, stop having presenters just get someone to come up and say, hey, here are the nominees for this award. That's how you cut down on time. Because the Oscars are no longer the celebration of movies. They aren't. And they haven't been for a very good long time. They are a marketing tool for movies that do not have, quote unquote, the widest reach or marketability. They're not. Otherwise, if you look back in the history of the Oscars, the movies that were nominated were the ones people saw the most, like Jaws. And unfortunately, that has shrunk up, because now it's just like, for the most part, people kind of think that film Twitter is the only gauge for quality and responses. It's not.
Not even close.
So I think people need to let go of that, or just let go of film Twitter in general. It's not that they want a superhero movie to be nominated Best Picture. We can have that whole debate on another podcast of why or why not that should be a thing. It's the fact that what people want to see is not what the Oscars want you to see.
At the end of the day, what people want is a program that loves and respects the art of filmmaking.
Kind of hard to do that when you do not air 8 of the awards because you're trying to cut down on time. It's also just a lot of little things. Like, you don't need to nominate a film just because a director that the Oscar community and award groups love. It's okay to not do that. I don't know if you're just afraid or something, or just too won over or seduced by those for your consideration campaigns, but it's okay to have something a little more interesting than just what the Oscars tend to always nominate. I think I saw a tweet that was just and I don't fully agree with that tweet, but it was all the Oscar movies have to be serious and sad and not fun because being an adult is not fun. And it's just granted, this lineup of Oscars is a little more approachable than other years because, you had Dune and The Power of Dog was on Netflix and then Coda was on Apple Plus.
Mm-hmm.
But still, a lot of the stuff that the Oscars just love and such is not what people want to see. And again, to be clear, that's not to say I want to see a Marvel movie get nominated. I don't. We had that happen already with Black Panther, and for some reason, people still went and gave it to Green Book. But it's why not give Encanto a Best Picture nom, or The Mitchells versus the Machines, or Belle? Just something interesting. I just want to see a shakeup at the Oscars, and unfortunately, that doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen because the Oscars suck. They don't suck as much as the Golden Globes, but they're kind of getting there at this point.
It's hard to disagree with that. And the worst part is, I don't even know how to fix the Academy. Short of ending the contract with ABC and moving the broadcast somewhere else.
I think the thing that they need to do is get rid of all the old curmudgeons that are holding everything up. It's I get it. A lot of y'all like Paul Thomas Anderson and Aaron Sorkin for some reason. Be more interesting. And if people didn't watch all the nominees, their votes don't count. I would assure you, if you cut out all the votes from people who didn't watch everything, or they gave you that asinine, I watched it because my kid watched it reason, the Oscar voting would be so much different. Because if it's about celebrating the best of that year, Don't Look Up would not be on there, or being the Ricardos. I'm just saying. And listen, I'm happy for Encanto. Encanto is a fantastic movie, but man, The Mitchells versus the Machines would have been such a better win. And it also wouldn't have looked as bad because, with all that Disney's doing right now.
There are layers to people's disappointment with the results of the Oscars.
It's not just Disney won the Best Animated Feature Award again. It's the fact that it seems and we saw it in the Oscars, people do not respect animation. Animation is for everyone. It is a unlimited, untapped potential of storytelling. It's a medium to tell mature stories. And a lot of those lazy, inept voters and celebrities who went on stage and just said, hey, 1/3 of the entertainment industry, you all don't matter, would know if they actually watched anything.
I'll throw the presenters a bone in saying I'm 99% sure they didn't write that remark. That was the writer's fault, but screw you, writers, for throwing animation under the bus.
Again, and it it just brings back that one moment when Chris Rock was dismissing voice acting. And it's just like, it's the easiest thing in the world. Screw you. It's acting, dude. It's the directors and voice directors' fault that they told you just to be you, or that you have a very limited range in acting. The animation industry needs so much more respect than they are getting, because a lot of these films probably would have been more interesting as animated films.
And this ties into the new deal for animation, because part of the reason, at least what it feels like, why studios pay like peanuts to writers, animators, storyboard artists, etc., is because they view animation as lesser compared to their live action counterparts, which is really unfair for many reasons. But most importantly, these people have worked hard slaving over something that they love. And during the pandemic, animation carried Hollywood for like the past 2 years. So that makes us all even more aggravating.
Yeah, it looks really bad. And no offense to those 3 live action Disney princesses, they have basically said, hey, here is all the ammunition you will ever need when you watch these live action Disney remakes. Because now we're going to be like, well, this sucked. Would have been better animated. Because, nothing against that one who's going to be in that Little Mermaid remake, but, you're probably going to be inferior to the 1989 classic. Just be quiet. Give these animators and the people who work in the animation industry more love and support. They earn it. They deserve it. A lot of y'all are just haters. So, but it is very nice to see that the entire industry, and just everyone basically pushed back on that night, just saying like, oh, boo.
Seeing all of us united against the Academy in that regard was very satisfying.
But anyway, let's get back to animation as a whole. And on top of a very fruitful year for theatrical films, we had a very good year for TV shows also. Like, we had stuff like The Ghost and Molly McGee, Centaur World, City of Ghosts, Kid Cosmic, Jellystone, Maya and the Three, Arcane. Arcane was one of the biggest shows of last year, and yet they still took pot shots at animation. Whatever. I don't get it. I just don't get those writers. And then like Invincible, and then Aquaman King of Atlantis. It was a really good year, and just a lot of really interesting projects.
Oh, yeah. TV this year was just so out of this world. And especially for adult animation, I think while most of it is still sort of action and comedy centric, we're seeing a lot more variety in both art styles and like different stories to tell.
Right.
Which is just really refreshing. And don't worry, guys, I promise one of these days we will cover Love, Death, and Robots.
I think what helps is that even the stuff aimed at kids had a lot more nuance to them. Like Centaur World, as goofy and zany as it is, got really dark really fast once it started to hit the ground running. Especially like when they got to those tree shamans, and it's just like, oh, this is kind of cute and quirky. And then, oh, that's dark. Or like Arcane. And then like with Invincible crawled so Arcane could run. And I love Invincible, but if I had to pick and choose between this and Arcane, I'm going to go with Arcane.
Before Arcane, I'd say the best work of art that I saw last year was Maya and the Three. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a huge Jorge Gutierrez fan, although Jorge Gutierrez is awesome. Yeah. And I look forward to everything that he works on. Whenever you watch him in interviews, he just looks like a kid excited to play with his new toys.
It was a very fruitful year, and I can't wait to see what else happens this year, because we already had the Cuphead show and Vox Machina. We're going to get like Green Eggs and Ham season 2, which I'm looking forward to. I just can't wait to see what happens, and I'm going to be there for all the people who are working hard that are sadly getting screwed over by the big studios and such. But let's get to our awards. We're going to start with the most negative of the bunch. Like, let's get the negative Nancy's out of the way. Here is your little piece of hate candy. The nomination for the worst animated feature, we had Lava, Zico's Journey, Monster Hunter, Legend of the Guild, Night of the Animated Dead, Doggone Trouble, Spirit Untamed, Space Jam: A New Legacy, Bigfoot Family, The Addams Family 2, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. For me, I just have to give it to Lava. I don't think I saw a more frustrating film, and one that had little to no idea what it was about, or what I could understand it was about, and had the worst sound mixing I have ever seen for a dub. Just the worst. Everything wrong that you can think of happened in Lava. And no, this is not the Pixar short. This is this small animated film that got a tiny release last year from, and was like part of the Annecy lineup the previous year. But at the very least, I could find one or two things to like about the other films that were listed in this pool of the worst animated feature. I really couldn't find that for Lava. But that's just for me. That's my choice for the worst animated feature.
So the one I'm nominating is Night of the Animated Dead, which could also qualify for most disappointing animated feature. And here's the thing. This was just an embarrassment. Not only was it far inferior to the George Romero classic, but it wasn't even a proper Warner Animation release. This was from like some random third-party studio, and it looks ugly. It barely has a story. You know, the characters are garbage. I'm still kind of amazed that this even exists. What hurts about it is we already don't have enough like animated horror offerings. So for one to be this bereft of quality, it just stings that much more.
I mean, like, if I had to choose like a runner-up, it'd probably be Space Jam: A New Legacy. Zico's Journey was boring, but it was what it was. You could watch better. Space Jam: A New Legacy was just maddening. It is every cynical bit of nostalgia baiting thing that I hate about the current pop culture landscape, where it's all just like nostalgia. The thing I liked from a kid is the best thing ever, and nothing else is ever that good. And Space Jam just wasn't a good movie originally. And yet they had all the potential and time to make a new one. And it still turned out to be one of the most cynically soulless pieces of media from last year.
This could have been the Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again of the Space Jam franchise. And while I gave it a positive review at the time, it has very much soured since.
Yeah, but for now that we got that out of the way, let's go to the other bit of disappointment and hate candy with most disappointing animated feature. These are the ones that are not the worst, but they had some potential to them that was otherwise not used well. The films nominated are Sing 2, The Addams Family 2, Secret Magic Control Agency, Sword Art Online Progressive Aria of a Starless Night, SpongeBob Sponge on the Run, My Hero Academia World Heroes Mission, and The Earwig and the Witch. Mike, how about you start? Which one would you say is your most disappointing animated feature among that? Or if you have any other mentions.
I've got two that I've narrowed it down to. I think The Addams Family 2 is probably the best example of a studio kind of rushing out a sequel just because the first one was a success. I should have guessed that this was going to turn out like subpar, knowing that it was being released only 2 years after the first one, which probably means they didn't give it that much time to cook, or they were, I hate using this word, but lazy, that they just kind of reused as many of the assets from the first film and just kind of leaned into the stereotypical family road trip plot that a lot of family films that we've seen too many times before. And the other problem with the Addams Family too is the edge from the source material has been completely sanded off. There might be like a couple moments of that classic Addams Family style of dark humor, mostly with the voodoo doll. That's really the extent of it. My other pick was The Earwig and the Witch. Not really like because I was expecting something amazing and it wasn't. It's that Studio Ghibli, I blame most of this on Hayao Miyazaki, not for the film itself, but that there was just no support with this movie. And it also doesn't help that the source material was like incomplete. So Goro had he literally had nothing to work with.
We've talked about this before, especially with this film, just saying like Miyazaki and the other co-founders did not do a good job future-proofing their studio. And yeah, why would you want to adapt an unfinished book to an animated feature? And listen, I'm not as hard on Goro as other people, but I am getting a little tired of him not being able to find his footing with directing. And maybe he just shouldn't direct. Though it is funny because apparently Hayao actually liked Earwig and the Witch, but I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going to understand why that was. For me, I think, yeah, the Addams Family 2 just had everything about the franchise defanged from its release. Secret Magic Control Agency is just from Wizard Animation, and I am trying to find a film that I like of theirs, but I just cannot find a movie I like from them. Secret Magic Control Agency had basically Men in Black, but with magic.
Sounds like such a cool premise, and
it's just not. And I'm rooting for it because they're one of the few Russian animation studios that are putting out features. And there's some stuff coming out that looks interesting. Russia has a very fruitful animation industry that is unfortunately being overshadowed by just everything else. Sword Art Online Progressive almost fixes the problem with Sword Art Online by focusing on an entirely different lead character instead of Kirito. But then halfway through, it's like, oh, wait, we're just retelling Sword Art Online, but with a slightly different perspective. So Kirito has to be in the movie and in the story. So it just kind of goes back to oh, wait, this is why I don't like Sword Art Online. My Hero Academia World Heroes Mission, it was just fine. After the second film improved upon everything that the first film did, the third film is regressing, a step backwards. Even though the movie exclusive character, who is just great, is a lot of fun, the villain was boring, and it's also another movie that's just focusing on the three characters, and then you don't see the other classmates. And they're just like, I am going to do this for these three characters, and only these three characters, because they're the only ones that matter. And it's like, I get it, they're the fan favorite characters, but for the love of God, the reason why the second film was so good was because all of the students were involved. But if I had to pick one movie, well, actually two, that were my most disappointing animated features, Sing 2, I am getting impatient with you, Illumination. You had all the potential to make this a really touching and a really emotionally gripping movie. But then it just turned into a undercooked jukebox musical. And I liked the first movie, but they didn't do enough to progress the world outside of having some new songs and then one idea for a very heartwarming arc with Clay Calloway. And they just don't use it well.
And you know what would have been a much better movie in hindsight? A film that just focused on Johnny.
That or just focused on Clay Calloway. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
That works too.
I don't care about half of the characters, especially since the movie doesn't care about half of the characters. And then with SpongeBob, Sponge on the Run, it looked so cool. I love the animation for that movie. And it shows how diverse and unique animation can be. But the story sucks. It was so underwhelming. And you know SpongeBob can be better. The first SpongeBob movie had a very solid story. There's a reason why people still love that movie.
And Sponge Out of Water is like so much better than the marketing made it out to be that this does kind of feel like a regression in quality.
It is. But that's what I have to say for those. Like, I'm rooting for you, Illumination and Paramount Animation and all the animation studios in the world right now. I'm rooting for you to put out something great. I just hope you do and you are able to. Hashtag New Deal for Animation. Make it a worldwide thing. The whole world of animation needs to change. Now, most anticipated animated film of 2022. We are already 4 months into the year, so we might as well say what our most anticipated film coming out. The nominees are Inuo, The Deer King, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, Wendell and Wild, Pinocchio, My Father's Dragon, The Bad Guys, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Imaginary, Suzume Locking Up Doors, and The Sea Beast. I told you this year's going to be a bloodbath.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to pick one because there are just so many good sounding films coming out this year. We're getting a Masaki Yuasa film, a Makoto Shinkai film, a new Studio Panak film. We're getting a Guillermo del Toro animated feature. We're getting a new Henry Selick animated feature. We're getting a sequel to the game-breaking Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We're getting another cartoon saloon movie. We're getting a Puss in Boots sequel that looks way better than it has any right to be. Like, this is a good year. Like, gosh darn. I can't wait. But if I had to pick a film, and it's probably obvious, and this is tough because I want to say all of them, I have to go with Inuo. I want to see Masaki Yuasa's last movie for now. I just really want to see it. I need it in my veins like 5 months ago.
2 questions. 1, does it have a release date yet?
Nope.
My question number 2 was more rhetorical, but am I going to see this in theaters? G-Kids, the ball is in your court.
I'm sure they are. If they can make Belle a hit, then they can make this one a hit. I'm sure they can do it, especially since I think they're going to get the Imaginary and Suzume Locking Up Doors because it's Makoto Shinkai and Studio Panak, and they've had good relationships with those studios before because they put out Weathering with You and Mary and the Witch's Flower. And then with Netflix, just golly, they're putting out everything. Wendell and Wild, Pinocchio, My Father's Dragon, The Sea Beast. It all sounds so good. And I can't wait to see what, or just of anything for My Father's Dragon. So
Same.
And it's not that I'm not looking forward to Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, but it's like, and it looks great. That teaser was amazing. But I want to see a little more. And The Bad Guys, like, it looks great, but we've seen what happens when a DreamWorks film looks great and then it kind of suffers in the writing department. And then Puss in Boots: The Last Wish just looks like a lot of fun. I want to see all of these movies. I'm anticipating all of them.
Same. If I had to choose one, what I will say about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 is just that. It's Part 1. You know, Hollywood is full of reboots, remakes, and sequels, yada, yada, yada. But Part 1 implies a much larger story. So between this and what I assume will be Part 2 in 2023, my curiosity has peaked. Like, Into the Spider-Verse was already a pretty ambitious story for the character.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, like, how they're going to top what was already like one of the greatest movies like of the past decade.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I feel for the animators working hard on it.
No pressure or anything.
Yeah. You basically are making a sequel to a film that basically broke down all the barriers for the theatrical animation scene. So now for the best TV show, we have the nominees: Centaur World, City of Ghosts, Kid Cosmic, Jellystone, The Ghost and Molly McGee, Maya and the Three, Arcane, and Aquaman King of Atlantis. And Invincible. This is tough because they're all so different to me. Like, you can't really say one is just a better version of the other.
They're all just themselves.
Yeah. And that's what's so cool. You don't have to compare and contrast. But if I had to pick one, I don't want to. Do you have one that you can say that you liked more than the others, just in general?
I have said on numerous occasions that Arcane is the best work of art that I consumed in the year 2021, bar none. And the reason why I say that without a shred of exaggeration is because I do not give a shit about League of Legends. And yet this adaptation was a completely original story based simply on
the universe of League of Legends.
And yeah, the lore is, there's a lot of lore in that game, and yet they somehow crafted something completely original where you actually care about each and every one of the characters, not just the heroes, but the villains in their own twisted ways. And it was just so fascinating. The world building was rich and layered. Nuanced. Even the politics was compelling to watch, unlike, say,
Game of Thrones
or The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
This was just the complete package. And I would say the same thing about Centaur World, except I still have not finished the second season.
How dare you?
I belong in the shame box.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I have to give it to Arcane. Though everyone would be a runner-up, though. It's just like Centaur World told a very goofy musical story that was able to still be complex and emotionally gripping. City of Ghosts was just the most unique, like, children's focused, quote-unquote, piece of animation of last year. Jellystone just brought back that unhinged, zany, cartoony comedy that people love. The Ghost and Molly McGee was just a breath of fresh air among Disney's multiple just franchise fodder stuff. Maya and the Three was just an epic experience that only Jorge could tell. And Aquaman King of Atlantis took a idea and just ran with it. It made Aquaman fun to watch. Like, more fun than even Jason Momoa made Aquaman fun to watch.
And this was the chaotic neutral version of Aquaman, and it was, or maybe like chaotic lawful or chaotic good. This was just a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, and then also it's another example of just how great animation can be. And it was just so funny. Like, I rewatched it recently, and I just found myself laughing so many times. It shows what happens when you give a team the time to make something amazing. Now then, back to movies, though. The award for the biggest surprise. These are the films that came out and pretty much wowed me. Like, not in, like, because I knew Encanto was going to be good, so that's not a surprise. The Mitchells versus the Machines, that was going to be good. I just knew it was going to be. I'm talking about something that just came out of nowhere, and then it was just like, heck yeah. Like, this was awesome. The nominees are Wish Dragon, SEAL Team, The Witcher, Nightmare of the Wolf, Joseph, New Gods, Nezha Reborn, The Bears' Famous Invasion of Sicily, and Demon Slayer Mugen Train. I think my wins will go to, well, the one win will go to Wish Dragon. Just a small film that's been in production for like years. And then it came out on Netflix. I wasn't expecting much. And it was one of the most delightful bits of theatrical animation that I've seen. And it was just one of those movies like SEAL Team where they just threw all the jokes at the wall. They wanted to make you laugh and enjoy yourself while watching the movie. And I still think about so many of the jokes, even like the small background jokes, like when the dragon steals some money from someone, like to give bus fare to the main character. You see the, like, the customer look at the guy and he's like, did you take my money? And then you see him just like elbow slam him in the background, or like the whole sequence when they were stuck in traffic. Just little moments like the whole, like, I'm just going to walk in. And then the dragon's like, stop, with all the hands coming up. And And then like SEAL Team was also in that regards. Like I think I could tell we were in for something special with the lower frame rate stop motion look of the animation. And then they just went nuts with the humor. And everyone was on the same level and they all knew what the assignment was.
Oh
And
yeah.
so that's my runner up. I think I would have chosen The Witcher Nightmare of the Wolf if it like improved on a few elements of like the side characters. And I like all of these movies. It's just that like I was so wowed by Wish Dragon and SEAL Team. I kind of knew New Gods Nezha Reborn was going to be fun, and it just was. And even if the Bears' famous invasion of Sicily was like had a very weak story to it, the animation was going to be why I watched it because it's such a every frame's a painting kind of movie.
Oh yeah.
And then Demon Slayer Mugen Train was just like the film that made sure that's to say that hey, franchise films can be substantial movies. And they did it by making it they took a whole arc from the manga and turned it into a movie. But I didn't choose it because as my winner because then they chopped up Mugen Train and turned it into a small chunk of the current Demon Slayer season, and that kind of ruined it for me a little.
Although from what I've heard, it's not like the quality went down. They just
Oh no, it's like it ruined it for me not on a quality level, but just kind of like on a cynical corporate kind of reason.
Oh yeah, that's understandable.
Now, what was your biggest surprise?
Unlike you, I'm not as adept at when it comes to Chinese animation. So when I watched New Gods Nezha Reborn like earlier today, I was kind of blown away because the animation looks incredible. As an urban fantasy, this is like one of the better examples. Like the story was compelling, the fantastical elements felt more seamless in the narrative. I just found it like emotionally resonant too. I just needed a second to shout out how great this movie is and kind of tease an upcoming episode where we talk more about the Chinese animation scene because there's a lot of diamonds in the rough that not a lot of people in the West know about. We'll get more into that later. The biggest surprise, honestly, it has to be Wish Dragon. This movie's kind of been on the back burner for so long to the point that none of us were even sure it was going to get a release in the States. But then Netflix is like, I'm your Huckleberry. Put it on the service in either June or July. And yeah, this one's just a lot of fun. While I disagree with people who say it's merely an Aladdin ripoff, I kind of understand where they're coming from, in part because Aladdin originated in China. So yeah, the similarities are kind of baked in the source material, but this movie also just on its own merits stands out for its sense of humor, the voice cast, the action scenes. This is just a good time. I wish more people had a chance to see it.
Like we said, 2021 is just full of great stuff. Now, for the best, we finally got it feature. This is for like the movies that we finally got either a year or two later or even more that they just like, oh, we finally brought them over. The nominees are Zhang Zia, Stand By Me, Doraemon 1 and 2, Wish Dragon, The Stranger by the Shore, Rumble, and New Gods Nezha Reborn. Rumble is not going to be on these nomination lists a lot, but I felt like I had to include it somewhere because I felt bad that it just kind of got thrown under the bus. And
Same.
I was happy we finally got it, and it's a really solid movie. And I was just surprised that we got The Stranger by the Shore. Like we rarely get any of the boy love or gay romance stuff from Japan. And when we do, it's always like super limited in how many Blu-rays they make. So then it becomes extremely expensive to buy them. And I'm just not doing that. I am very curious to see why Netflix bought the Stand By Me Doraemon films. Just because I'm wondering if they're going to make another one in the future with Netflix helping. I could totally see that.
I was going to say, is there a long game to this acquisition? Because in the West, nobody cares about Doraemon. Unless you're one of those like diehard otakus who consume more than, the mainstream stuff. Doraemon has like little to no presence in the West.
Oh, it's super big in Japan. It never crossed over to the US and such. They tried, but it just didn't work out. Or it didn't work out as they wanted. Even though they make like a Doraemon film every year. Well, it seems like every year. It's like Shin-Chan and Case Close. There's always a new movie. But I think if I had to pick the best we finally got it award, I think it has to, again, go to Wish Dragon. Just a film that we knew nothing about until we finally got that one trailer in 2020. And then its final release in 2021. We just talked about it, so I'm not going to say much else. Just, hey, we finally got it. It was great. Zhang Jia was also really good, but we'll say that for another time. And again, since I know about the studio that made New Gods, Nezha Reborn, I knew it was going to be great, but I was just glad that we got it sooner than later. I wouldn't mind if like Well Go USA Entertainment and Netflix partnered up to bring these Chinese animated features over, because it seems like Well Go USA is doing that, because a lot of those features, including Zhang Jia, were brought over by Well Go USA. So
something I want to add to that, I don't mean to bring up like rumors on this podcast, but there are some rumblings of Netflix Animation, their home studio, probably on its last legs. But if Netflix wants to continue in the animation game, I think partnering with studios outside the US is the smartest decision they can make.
Well, the problem is the rumors that are going around is that Netflix is not, it's regressing, because they used to be the bastion of just like what you can make in animation. But unfortunately, because they just don't know how to run their service, they are regressing back into more franchise and nostalgia stuff, which you don't really want to hear that. And it's just also rumblings of just like people who worked at Netflix saying like, well, I'm glad I got to make my show because I wouldn't be able to make it now. And that's just a thing you do not want to hear.
No, not one bit.
And that's just a shame. I hate hearing that, because, and again, y'all need to give animation people more respect than you are giving them. So what is your best we finally got it feature?
I have to agree with you on Wish Dragon. And one more thing I'll say about it is, you know how rare it is to have a platonic relationship between characters of opposing genders?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of them. And it was honestly pretty refreshing to see.
It is just nice, because we got to get out of that thing of just like, well, there's a boy character, there's a girl character, they gotta fall for each other. No. Or like in the movie, stop. No, it's okay to be friends. We got to get rid of that. Now, the best streaming exclusive. These are the ones that are going to be the nominees for the films that came out on like Netflix, Disney Plus, Apple Plus, whatever. Mostly Netflix, but the others haven't gotten to that point yet. And either had like a tiny theatrical release, but nothing to the point of like what some of the other ones got. So like these were just meant for the streaming service. The nominees are Wish Dragon, Rumble, SEAL Team, The Summon of the Gods, Words That Bubble Up Like Soda Pop, The Witcher, Nightmare of the Wolf, New Gods, Nezha Reborn, Hilda and the Mountain King, Bombay Rose, Green Snake, and The Stranger by the Shore. Yeah, I think I have to give it to the Summon of the Gods. And then my runner-up would be Words That Bubble Up Like Soda Pop. I just been waiting for the Summon of the Gods ever since 2020, and I was just so happy to get it. And it's so good. And it shows that adult animation doesn't have to be ultra-violent or adult and crass in its comedy and writing. It just told a human story. And that's why it's my pick. And then Words That Bubble Up Like Soda Pop was just a really sweet treat. Just a nice, small animated film that just didn't have to do with the end of the world. It was just between these really likable characters with some of the most vibrant animation of the year.
This is probably one of the most colorful movies I've seen, to the point where like even you just saying the title it just makes all those colors pop again. The one that I'm gonna pick is Hilda and the Mountain King. And by extension, this is just another recommendation for the series Hilda. This show, and I'll try to mostly talk about the movie, but I kind of can't do that without saying how wonderful the series is. So if you haven't seen Hilda already, do it because it's great and you will love it. And these characters are all delightful and endearing. And the movie could be enjoyed on its own right for its sense of adventure and a actually pretty nuanced conflict. One of the better commentaries on colonialism that I've seen, which is another big surprise that I was not expecting. But yeah, any one of these films could have taken the award, but these are just the ones that stood out the most.
I understand. Now, we will move on to the best DC direct-to-video animated feature. The nominees are Batman: The Long Halloween, Injustice, Batman: Soul of the Dragon, and Justice Society World War II. Well, it ain't Injustice. That movie was not good. It's basically you took the story of the fighting game that this is based on and then cut out all the fighting bits. So you had the cutscenes, and that's really it. And I liked Batman Soul of the Dragon. It was pretty much my favorite until Batman The Long Halloween came out, and I just had to pick that one as my favorite. I thought that one was great, and it helped that it was split up into two parts. And I liked Justice Society World War II, but it doesn't help that it was kind of mismarketed as to what kind of film we were actually getting, and the villain was weak.
Can't really remember too much about like the villain of that movie, but at least the art style was good. I generally am a fan of the Justice Society, so any opportunity to see some of these characters is always one that I will gladly take the opportunity to see anything involving the Justice Society. But it's hard to disagree with Batman: The Long Halloween being the best of this crop. And not just because The Long Halloween is one of my favorite Batman comics, although, yeah, they really did a damn good job adapting that story the way it's supposed to be, too. Had this just been like one 75-minute animated film, it would have felt a lot more rushed, and it would have been an overall underwhelming experience. But letting it breathe with two parts is perfect, because the first half can be like the first 6 months of the year, and then part two can be all of the fallout in the latter half. I hope more adaptations are given like this level of care.
We'll just have to see. It might be a direct-to-video thing, but they've made some pretty solid stuff. So next up, best romance. We actually had enough movies that had a lean on and focus on romance stories this time. So we have Josie the Tiger and the Fish, Strangers by the Shore, Bombay Rose, and Words That Bubble Up Like Soda Pop. I'm going to have to give this one to Josie the Tiger and the Fish. I just adored their dynamic, and it's a really sweet story about two people finding out what they want to do with their lives, and just that push that they give one another to pursue what they need to. I would have liked Strangers by the Shore more if it just did not try to rush through every dramatic plot point, even though I think the romance between the two characters can be really sweet. But yeah, it just felt like this movie was supposed to be longer, but they had only 70 minutes to make it. And Bombay Rose was great. It's still a great movie. I highly recommend people watch that movie. But I do think the romance between our two main characters was the least interesting thing about it. And then Words That Bubble Up Like Soda Pop is the runner-up, mostly because it just, the last third is a little generic. We've seen it before. It's not executed in any unique or different way, but it's still really good. It's just, I like Josie the Tiger and the Fish more.
I think that's fair, and I think I honestly agree. I still love Words That Bubble Up Like Soda Pop, but Josie the Tiger and the Fish took a storyline that, at least in the West, gets very bogged down by a little too much of an ableist point of view. And in this movie, it puts our two romantic leads on equal footing. They're two characters with their own agency that happen to see the best of each other. And their love story feels more organic. You care for both of them. You're not just rooting for the relationship to work. You just want both of them to be happy in the broad sense.
Right. Now, best drama. And I'm being kind of like vast with the definition of what the drama is. So we have Encanto, Belle, Josie the Tiger and the Fish, Words That Bubble Up Like Soda Pop, Flea, Joseph, Calamity, Fortune Favors Lady Nikuko, Popel La Chimney Town, Raya and the Last Dragon, and Batman the Long Halloween. I think it's a toss-up for me between Encanto and Belle, but I have to give it to Encanto. But it's tough. I don't know, because it's like there were so many different kinds of drama stories in this year, because we had Encanto with its familial toxicity was dripping throughout the entire family connection and how that really just messed with everyone. We had Flea, which is a real life story about someone avoiding the Taliban to find a better life. Joseph is a story about an actual artist who was in a prison camp for a majority of a war that was going on. Calamity is about the drama of a girl coming of age story of just being brave enough to help her family and the people that she needs to find a new home. Fortune Favors Lady Nikuko is the drama of a mother and daughter whose relationship is just kind of fraught. Popel La Chimney Town is basically a fairy tale that takes place in a steampunk world where, capitalism is evil. And then Raya and the Last Dragon is just all about how the lack of trust will destroy everyone. And then, of course, Batman, the Long Halloween is just Batman. But I think I was mostly impressed the most with Encanto's drama. But my runner-up would be Belle. You know what? I'm just going to give it to both. Encanto and Belle get the best drama.
Yeah, that's fair. Encanto, I think, is my number one, only because it's an easy choice, because I think by now, literally everyone has seen it. This is a movie that has layers, and I think it's really powerful to show generational trauma in, a mainstream animated musical. That just kind of makes the message hit that much harder. For my runner-up, I chose Calamity, partially because A, I love me a good Western, and B, while this is like mostly a dramatization, the story of Calamity Jane is just a fascinating one, and I was just kind of gripped by the story from start to finish. I don't think a lot of art and literature really portray Calamity Jane's childhood, so this was kind of a unique learning experience, even if the events are mostly fictional.
Yeah, that's the only thing that kind of drags that down, but I do love the story to it. And Belle is just the emotional power of the drama in that movie about the main character becoming a stronger person and to get over the loss of her mother. It hit me hard. Now, for best musical, we actually had enough musical films to actually make a category. And that's not always common. That's actually kind of interesting about this year. We have Belle, Encanto, Vivo, Sing 2, and My Little Pony: A New Generation. It's really a toss-up between Belle and Encanto, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's tough because Encanto is just like everyone's heard the music. And the music is so good and it connects with the story more than I think Belle's music. But I do find myself going back to Belle quite a lot. And nothing against Vivo. I just don't think Lin-Manuel Miranda's music was as good as in Encanto. And the music is actually really solid in My Little Pony: A New Generation. It's just, it doesn't match the others in quality.
Does it feel like the music was written as an afterthought?
Absolutely not. No, the music is just really solid. It's not the best musical numbers, but it's that overall movie was actually really solid. I think a lot of people kind of got grumpy with it because it wasn't the show from 2010s and such. And Sing 2 is just a jukebox musical, and it's a good one. I mean, the moments at the end are all very good, but that's because that's big climactic finish. It has to be good. So I have to give this one to. If you had to choose one, who would you give it to?
This is tough.
I think I might have to give it to Belle because I liked all the music equally when I first heard it. It took a little longer for Encanto to hit that mark for me.
I think that's fair. I enjoy the songs in Encanto, but I love, even if it's just like one or two numbers that I love from Belle, I love those more than I love any of the numbers from Encanto. And yes, some of them are really good and really like strong and unique. Like Dos Oruguitas, which was nominated for Best Original Song at the Oscars, is unique in that it was Disney's first song written entirely in Spanish. What I think I love about Belle is both in English and Japanese, the songs are bangers.
Yeah, I've heard that Encanto's songs don't work as well as others, like in other languages, which is kind of a shame, but it's also kind of interesting. It's just a lesson of adapting and translating to different languages. And now we move on to the best comedy, which is, which was the funniest movie ever of the year. The nominees are The Mitchells versus the Machines, SEAL Team, Wish Dragon, Vivo, Extinct, and Encanto. It's really a battle of what do you prefer more jokes or fewer jokes, but those jokes hit harder. Because like SEAL Team and Wish Dragon throw jokes at you. Encanto and Vivo have fewer jokes, but they hit harder. And then The Mitchells versus the Machines is somewhere in the middle. A ton of great jokes, and a lot of those jokes hit extremely hard. And Extinct was just more of a surprise that since it had a ton of Simpsons alumni writing the script and such and working on the movie, it just had a tinge of that Simpsons vibe to it. And that was sweet. It was cute. But it doesn't match up to the others to me. But if I had to choose the best comedy, I think it has to be The Mitchells versus the Machines because it is such a perfect amalgamation of a ton of jokes and a ton of bangers out of those jokes. I still get a huge kick, and I find myself quoting the Conan O'Brien robot scene. It's like, you will be gone forever.
I literally cannot watch even clips of that without bursting into laughing.
Oh, it was just a delight. But my runner-up would be SEAL Team. Just the fact that they threw everything in the kitchen sink at the viewer in terms of its humor and just how committed it was to being goofy as heck. I just have to give it a runner-up award for that.
I agree with your choices. Number one has to be The Mitchells versus the Machines because it was kind of like the complete package. But SEAL Team surprised me in the way that Hot Fuzz did when I first saw that. And purely in terms of the volume of jokes, because they throw so much at you that I still don't think I've seen everything.
Best action. We have The Mitchells versus the Machines, New Gods Nezha Reborn, SEAL Team, The Legend of Kaye, Zhang Jia, The Witcher, Nightmare of the Wolf, Demon Slayer, Mugen Train, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, Mortal Kombat, Defenders of the Realm, The Monkey King Reborn, America the Motion Picture, Batman Soul of the Dragon, Rumble, and Raya and the Last Dragon. If I had to go with pure action, and that's what I'm going with, like I'm going for just the overall best, most slick looking action, I would have to go with, it's going to be a tie. I'm going to give it to The Legend of Kaye and New Gods Nezha Reborn. It just felt more refreshing to see action-centric films from another country. And it just shows that, like, and hopefully America picks up on this, that, hey, we can do straight action movies in animation. because everyone else gets that. Apparently, the US just hasn't gotten that memo yet. Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm falls a little flat for me, and so does the Monkey King Reborn. Rumble is fun, but it's definitely more comedic in tone with its action. And Raya and the Last Dragon doesn't have as much action as you would think it should, but it's really good. It's just when you see New Gods, Neza Reborn, and it just doesn't compare. And then with SEAL Team, I was just amazed at how fun the action was out of a comedy. But then there's the Mitchells versus the Machines, where it's not as action packed, but I think the action really is like at its best at the very end.
Yeah.
Especially when the mom goes into bloodlust mode. So, but for me, yeah, The Legend of Kaye and New Gods Neza Reborn are my award winners.
For me, I will go with Neja Reborn because the thing about action is, and why I love this movie specifically, is the key to a good action scene is it has to have emotional weight to it. And there is emotional weight in pretty much every fight scene, especially the ones towards the end. Once Yu Shang finally understands who he is, what he's fighting for, that was like emotionally satisfying of the action sequences that I've seen. And for my other pick, I'll give a shout out to Demon Slayer, Mugen Train, at least in terms of anime franchise films, because this movie just went, we're going to ramp this up to 11 and show you why we deserve to be on the big screen.
Yeah, and even to the point where it's like, oh man, they beat the main villain. And then you hear boss music start up again. And they're like, why is the boss music still going? And then that's when they get one of the big demons of the show coming in saying like, hey, I'm going to actually show you the real threat that you are not ready for. It was good. I just think like Demon Slayer's action is already so good. It needed to do a little more for me. Now then, we're getting to the end. Best 2D animation. These are for the films that have 2D animation the most, with very little CGI. Belle.
Words bubble up like soda pop.
Josie the Tiger and the Fish. The Summon of the Gods. Calamity. Fortune Favors Lady Nikuko. The Legend of Kaye. Demon Slayer Mugen Train. Little Vampire. Crypto Zoo. And Arlo the Alligator Boy. For me, it kind of depends because a lot of these films have a very unique take on what you could say is the best 2D animation. The Summon of the Gods is more weighted and real. Calamity is more weighted, but has like that whimsy of the art style to help. Fortune Favors Lady Nikuko just shows how good Studio 4C's animation is. The Legend of Kaye is just that cool watercolor look to everything. And then Belle is just, it looks great. It's Mamoru Hosoda and Studio Chizu. But I will say it does, I think it's not as 50-50 with its CGI and 2D, but if I had to give it the winner here, I think I would have to give it to Josie the Tiger and the Fish. Studio Bones is such a good animation house, and this movie shows you what they can do, and it's such a beautiful looking movie. I still think about the visual look of this film from time to time, even after watching it and owning the Blu-ray.
2D animation, this was a surprisingly strong year for movies that, you know, both Eastern and Western had a nice return to 2D animation.
Only the US could do that now, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So
But yeah, I think between Words Bubble Up Like Soda Pop and Josie the Tiger and the Fish, those kind of have to be my picks. Belle, probably the best looking animated film, period. But if we're strictly judging 2D animation, I'm not sure like how much I can praise the 2D animation of World Within film, but at least the stuff that took place in the real world looked amazing.
Right. And yeah, I think my runner-ups would be The Summon of the Gods and Words Bubble Up Like Soda Pop. Just the world of animation is unique. We've said that already, but we're going to say it again. The bright neon colors of words that bubble up is so cool. And then it goes into like little bits of Studio Trigger and Science Saru mentalities of how the characters are animated. And it's a wholly unique looking Japanese animated film. And then with just the Summon of the Gods, just how ethereal and atmospheric it is of when they're on the mountains. And it's just so good. Little Vampire has probably some of the best character animation of last year, along with Arlo the Alligator Boy. But I think their stories suffered because of it.
Fair.
Best CGI animation: The Mitchells versus the Machines, Encanto, Luca, The Bear's Famous Invasion of Sicily, Pupel La Chimney Town, Wish Dragon, and Ron's Gone Wrong. I think for me, I'm just impressed with Ron's Gone Wrong, with like it being the studio's first film, and it looks as good as it does, because it didn't fall into like a real FX entertainment or illumination whole like problem of like, oh, this looks a little rough. Ron's Gone Wrong is very polished. Pupel of Chimney Town is just a really unique looking CGI film. It takes all the visuals of the storybook it's based on and brings it to life in CGI. And it's also Studio 4C. They know what they're doing. They're one of the few studios that I think can pull off CGI animation in Japan. The Bear's Famous Invasion of Sicily, every scene's a painting. You could literally frame every scene. And then Luca has just delightful character animation. Just, I love when they are the sea monsters and then they get out of the water. Just how seamless that is. And just the expressions and what have you. It's like a precursor to what Turning Red would end up with.
Oh, yeah.
And then Encanto is just like a lot of different diverse body types and quote unquote like non-traditional beauty and such. Like it's not just like, oh, these characters kind of look like they swap out the hair and then that's it, which that's a kind of a thing you could say is an issue with a lot of Disney princesses, but it is Disney. It would be a surprise if their CGI was not looking good. So for me, I think the award will go to The Mitchells versus the Machines. Just that painted look of all the characters. The designs are great. And my runner-up would be The Bear's Famous Invasion of Sicily.
The Mitchells vs. Machines takes this because the continuation of what Sony has just been crushing ever since Into the Spider-Verse, they know how to like really push the limits of what CGI can do. And plus, you know me, I'm all about that mixed media. And while we don't have a mixed media category this year necessarily, it's still something that I just wish more studios were incorporating. For my runner-up, I will give it to Ron's Gone Wrong. It's not stellar animation, Disney Pixar level, but CGI in general has come so far that if you do crush it like on your very first film, then the sky's the limit for Locksmith Animation in the future. And if this is how good their first film is, then yeah, I really can't wait to see what they do for like their next three.
Same. Now we will go to the most unique animation, where this is kind of the like what looked the most distinct out of all the animated films that were coming out. Like what kind of combinations did they do to make the CGI or the 2D stand out? The nominees are Belle, The Mitchells versus the Machines, Vivo, Crypto Zoo, and Bombay Rose. Crypto Zoo just continues Dash Shaw's distinct visual look. And if you've seen my entire high school sinking into the sea, well, this is that amped up to 11. Bombay Rose, just with its painted look, while it's not on the loving Vincent side of like, oh my gosh, it still looks great. And then like the Mitchells, well, we just talked about Mitchells versus the Machines and how it has that distinct perspective of everything from Abby Jacobson's characters like look, and then Belle with its combination of 2D and CGI and just that whole social media world that a lot of the film takes place in. But I think I have to give it to the Mitchells versus the Machines, and then Belle will be the runner-up.
Same. I'm very curious to see Studio Chizu and Sony Pictures Animations does next. I just hope they continue, like, and I hope every studio continues to do this. Keep pushing the boundaries of what animation can do. In terms of Studio Chizu, I hope they continue what they did on Belle and outsource animation from like Western animators like Tom Moore from Cartoon Saloon and a couple Disney alumni. That made the You universe in Belle look as unique as it did.
So now we have favorite minor role and / cameo. Like these performances weren't like the biggest part of the film, but they still left a distinct impression and such. They are Sacha Baron Cohen as Uncle Ugo from Luca, Conan O'Brien from The Mitchells versus the Machines, and Leslie David Baker as the Florida bus driver from Vivo. I just thought this was just a fun little one to do because it, like, the minor roles still matter to the overall package, and I was just surprised of how funny Leslie David Baker's character was. It was such a non-character, but then they gave him such a personality with who he was. And then Conan O'Brien is just, maybe it's just because I don't watch his talk show and or listen to his podcast a lot, but when you give him like a good direction to go with his comedic timing, he hits it out of the park. And then Sacha Baron Cohen is just great in a lot of the stuff he does in voiceover work. So just seeing him as like the deep sea monster and just being as creepy as it can be was just a delight. But I think I still have to go with Conan O'Brien from The Mitchells versus the Machines. It was just a nice surprise to see him in that movie. And just that one part is one of the funniest jokes of that movie.
Yeah, my answer is the same. Like I said before, if even after like the 12th time watching just that scene on repeat alone is enough to crack me up, then you know you've made an impact.
Right. Now then, next up, we go into the Best Supporting Actress category. We have Olivia Colman as Pal from The Mitchells versus the Machines, Jessica Darrow as Luisa from Encanto, Diane Guerrero as Isabella from Encanto, Maria Cecilia Botero as Abuela from Encanto, and Gemma Chan from Raya and the Last Dragon. This one's tough because Olivia Colman is just delightful as an evil AI villain. And everyone from Encanto is just great in their own ways. I just love Luisa being just like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Eye twitches. Just dealing with the family pressure. It's like, oh, I can lift everything. Yeah, no problem. Don't ever think about how I feel about all this. And of course, the Lin-Manuel Miranda line of her song. Like, have you ever thought Hercules someday is just like, yo, I don't want to fight Cerberus? She captures that energy well. And then Isabella, just how she's like, I thought she did a fantastic job of being like, oh yes, I am so perfect in every way. I don't want to be because it sucks. And then Maria Cecilia Botero as Abuela just brings a more nuanced take on the evil, well, not even evil grandmother, like the matriarch, but just a more distinct take on it.
Before I pick my answer, I also need to give a shout out to Olga Melendez, who provided the singing voice for Abuela in Encanto. She's also known as Abuela from Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical In the Heights. Even if she only gets like brief little bars in like the songs, she's still just terrific. But my pick, I think, has to go to Olivia Colman as Pal, because Olivia Colman, when she wants to be, is one of the funniest actresses who isn't exclusively a comedian. She brings this fun, jovial, chaotic energy to all of her performances.
Yeah.
And as the villain, it just works.
Yeah, I think I have to go with Olivia Colman as well, with my runner-up being Jessica Darrow. Olivia Colman is great, just fantastic. Now, for Best Supporting Actor, we have Stephen Root from Popella Chimneytown, Mike Rianda as Aaron Mitchell from The Mitchells vs. the Machines, Saverio Raimondo as Ercole from Luca, Marco Barrichelli as Massimo from Luca, Juan de Marcos as Andres from Vivo, Mark Whitten as Kyojuro from Demon Slayer Mugen Train, and John Leguizamo as Bruno. I know we're not supposed to talk about him, from Encanto. This one's tough because I think Stephen Root brings his most heartwarming performance in Popella Chimneytown. And I think Mike Rianda captures that little kid energy of Aaron. And I think Saverio in Luca is just like, while maybe a slightly one-dimensional villain, he brings this like, oh, I am the most smug son of a gun you'll ever meet.
He's one of those you'll love to hate him kind of villains.
And also Mark Whitten brings, I think, the most heart out of the cast in Mugen Train. Like, he's the surprise reason you watch that movie. He's the reason he stays there, like with you as like you leave the theater. And John Leguizamo brings like this tragic, like heart-wrenching performance of just someone who's pretty broken because of the whole family toxicity. And then there's just that heartbreaking scene of like how he has his own makeshift place at the table, and he's just like, they're not perfect, but they're my family. And I'm just like, I keep watching that scene from time to time if I need to get on board the pain train. But it's tough. And I also like Marco Barcelli as Massimo, who is also like the secret weapon of that movie, because I think he also brings in the heart for Luca's story of just like, he's a very different kind of father figure that you don't see a lot in animated films.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm going to have to give it to Mark Whitten from Mugen Train. He just did such a good job. And then my runner-up would be Stephen Root from Popella Chimneytown, just because it's like, oh my God, Stephen Root can do so much. He's not just a comedy actor. But then there's also John Leguizamo. I chose a lot of good ones.
Yeah. In terms of animation, supporting actor is like unreasonably stacked. I do want to give a little bit of shout out Juan DeMarcos from Vivo. As I kind of mentioned when we did our episode, the weekend that I saw Vivo was also around the time that I lost my great uncle. That film just kind of hit me probably differently than it would if I only just watched it now. As far as who I'm picking to take the award, I honestly think this is John Leguizamo's best performance in a while. He put like all of his heart and soul into the character we're not supposed to talk about. But no, seriously, his story was compelling. The vocal performance was rich with emotion and heartbreak, and then towards the end, once he's actually welcomed back into the family, it was just so satisfying. And John Leguizamo gave the best supporting performance. But I also have to say, some of the line delivery that Mike Rianda gives as Aaron is just hilarious. Like when he's running away from his crush, like, I hate dinosaurs, goodbye forever.
There were some just great overall cast performances in this year of animated films. Oh yeah, and we do have a best cast nomination, so we'll get to that. Best actress, we have Kylie McNeil / Kaho Nakamura from Belle, Abby Jacobson as Katie Mitchell from The Mitchells vs. the Machines, Stephanie Beatrice as Mirabelle from Encanto, Susie Young / Kaya Kiyohara from Josie the Tiger and the Fish, Kim Wong as Smile from Words That Bubble Up Like Soda Pop, Salome Bulvin from Calamity, Maya Rudolph as Linda Mitchell from The Mitchells vs. the Machines, Emma Berman from Luca, and Kelly Marie Tran from Raya and the Last Dragon. I gave two names one nomination because it's like they both have a distinct performance with how they approach the character, either in the original language or the dub, for films like Belle and Words That Bubble Up Like Soda Pop. This is tough also because I think Stephanie Beatrice is great, but I also really like Abby Jacobson as well. And Kelly Marie Tran just deserves all the love in the world. And then Salome Bolvin, who plays Calamity, it's just great as his hard edge, no nonsense character. But if I had to give one, I think I'd have to give it to Maya Rudolph as Linda Mitchell, just because she brings this different mom energy to the role. And then, of course, the whole bloodlust sequence in the third act is just great. just just thinking about all the moments, like when she just runs up and just pulls the heart out of one of the robots. My runner-up would be Kylie McNeil and Kaho Nakamura from Belle, just because I think they do a great job with the different emotional ranges that the character goes through.
I'm actually going to give my top prize to Kylie McNeil and Kaho Nakamura because I've said this before. When it comes to adapting music for an English dub, it's not an easy feat. And you need to have a performer who is up for the task. And Kylie McNeil was 100% up for the task of putting her own spin on the English language lyrics to a Japanese written song. And there's like no dip in quality between the different language tracks, which is honestly very impressive. But my runner-up is Maya Rudolph as Linda, because Maya Rudolph has just kind of perfected the art of voice acting the mom character. And Linda is no ordinary mom. She A, goes berserk, and B, she just loves her family to death.
There were just some great performances. So even though we're kind of picking one to win, it's like, give everyone an award.
Basically, yeah.
So for Best Actor, we have Howard Wang and / Taishi Nakagawa from Josie the Tiger and the Fish, Rich Ching from The Summon of the Gods, Darren Barnett from The Summon of the Gods, Tony Hale from Popella Chimney Town, Danny McBride as Rick Mitchell from The Mitchells vs. the Machines, Yvonne Mulk and Ichikawa Somogoro the Eighth from Words That Bubble Up Like Soda Pop, Jacob Tremblay from Luca, and Antonio Raul Corbo as Lubici from Pupella Chimney Town. There's a lot of good ones, and it's like the age range is like so diverse, these nominees. But if I had to choose one that did the best, I think I was the most surprised and happy with Danny McBride as Rick Mitchell, because like Danny McBride was such a hit and miss comedy actor to me. It was always kind of like what the comedy was that he was working with. But he does such a good job as like the dad who's kind of stuck in the past, but really does care about his family, but he just sometimes doesn't know exactly what to do. And he was able to do the heartfelt moments and the comedy moments really well. I love the part where they're driving away from the robots like that are chasing them. And Katie is just like, okay, you got to do the Rick Mitchell special. He's like, the what? Dad, you have to do the Rick Mitchell special. I know, I heard you. I'm just being a jerk. And it's not that like I didn't love it more than like Jacob Tremblay, but Jacob Tremblay's a good actor. He knows what he's doing. And Antonio Raul Corbo brings this innocence to Lubici. We'll talk about that movie in May when it comes out on Blu-ray. But my runner-up would be Rich Ching from The Summon of the Gods. Just his character of the one that Darren Barnett is following. That internal mindset of like, I'm going to beat the human condition by climbing Mount Everest and climbing these intensely impossible areas. He does a really good job. And it's not just like, oh, I'm low-key and angsty and such. There's more to it than that. There's a reason why he acts as he does, because he knows the dangers of it. And he doesn't like people joining in with him because he knows what's going to happen. And he doesn't want what happened to the people who follow him. to happen to, to Darren Barnett's character. And Tony Hale just does a great job as the secondary character, our main character. Like, it's probably like that movie has probably the best performances from Stephen Root and Tony Hale that I've seen in a long time. So I can't wait for you to see it.
I'm excited too, based on that cast. My choices, I'm going to go with Danny McBride because he just kind of fits the role of slightly out of touch father figure perfectly. Balancing the comedy with like the genuine emotion is not always easy, but if they say comedians often make the best dramatic actors, this was a good example. For my runner-up, I will give it to Jacob Tremblay. This wasn't his first voice actor role. I think his first was playing Damian Wayne on Harley Quinn. But for his first leading role, yeah, he crushed it, infusing that childlike innocence with his character.
Mm-hmm.
All of these performances, though, what a great year.
Yeah. So now we have, and we're almost done, we have 3 more awards. So, best cast. Now, this is just overall, who had the best ensemble. We have Encanto, Belle, Mitchells versus the Machines, Luca, Calamity, The Bears' Famous Invasion of Sicily, SEAL Team, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, Joseph, Wish Dragon, Demon Slayer Mugen Train, and Josie the Tiger and the Fish. This one is tough. I'm not going to give it to Evangelion just because, even though I like the actors that they brought back from the original ADV dub, that still felt like a nostalgia play to the characters, and it was only until the final movie where it seemed like, oh, everyone sounds like how they should. I mean, we talked about it on Fresh Takes with the movies and such. It's really between Encanto and the Mitchells versus the Machines for me. Even though I love the cast and Belle, there's just something between with the Mitchells versus the Machines, with the family and then the side characters and the villains, and then with Encanto with the whole family dynamic and just how healthy and toxic parts of the family are. I think I still have to give it to Encanto. I think they had the best cast. And my runner-up would be the Mitchells versus the Machines.
What I'm going to do is I have Encanto and the Mitchells versus Machines tied for first. I know that's cheating, but
we've been doing ties all tonight, so
fair enough. Both of these movies are just so well cast. Everyone in Encanto, from the main lead to cousins with only a single line of dialogue, are perfectly cast, and the core cast in the Mitchells vs. Machines is super tight. But my runner-up is the voice cast for Demon Slayer Mugen Train. You could chalk that up to Funimation and Aniplex for having some of the finest voice actors involved with that cast. This is another one of those categories where it shows how far 2021 has come, casting a mix of celebrities and professional voice actors.
Now, best overseas and indie made animated feature. We have Belle, Josie the Tiger and the Fish, Words That Bubble Up Like Soda Pop, Calamity, Joseph, Flea, The Summon of the Gods, Bombay Rose, Shang-Xia, and Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0. It's Belle. No pretense or anything like that. Belle was my favorite overseas animated film of the year last year. I know a lot of people will be like, well, but I liked Evangelion. Well, Evangelion is it's a great way to end those rebuild films, but it's also reliant on you watching those other films. Belle is just unique and distinct and on its own.
It has to be Belle. To choose a runner-up, that's actually kind of tougher because every one of these films has something to offer. We talked about how good the romance is in Josie the Tiger and the Fish, and Words That Bubble Up Like Soda Pop, probably the most unique looking of the anime films we saw last year. Calamity is a painting come to life, and if you love Americana and that sort of aesthetic, then you're going to love this movie. Joseph and Flea are taking a different path in terms of the usual stories we see in animation. Flea, I think, is one of the best documentaries from last year. Some of the Gods, we've talked about. Another great example of a more adult story, but still taking advantage of the animation medium. And then Bombay Rose is another unique looking animated film. We don't really talk enough about like Indian cinema and Bollywood.
There are animated films from India. They just are very like direct to video ish releases here in the States. And we don't get a lot of them. Or I'm not made aware of them when they are available to watch and or come out in the States.
That is a problem that should be fixed eventually.
Yeah.
Belle's the winner. It was always going to be.
Yeah. And my runner-up would be Josie the Tiger and the Fish. Just a great movie. I still loved watching it when I saw it back in June or July, I think. But still. Now, the final one. The best US-made animated feature. We have The Mitchells versus the Machines, Encanto, Luca, Raya and the Last Dragon, and Vivo. Unlike the Oscars, well, I'm going to pick The Mitchells versus the Machines. Nothing against Encanto, but I'm giving the edge to The Mitchells versus the Machines because it took a little bit longer for Encanto to become big. Because everyone who saw it in theaters really liked it, but it only became the monster hit once it hit Disney Plus. And I think that hurts it a little because The Mitchells versus the Machines is just so good. And it hit the ground running so hard and so fast and basically held the title of the best animated feature of 2021 from when it was released in April. And that's so hard to do. It's just a more distinct and unique experience.
The Mitchells vs. Machines was my favorite film of 2021, period, for, let's see, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, at least 6 months. Like,
it was.
I honestly can't remember like when another film even came close to dethroning it. And actually, no, Belle was the only movie to dethrone The Mitchells versus the Machines. That's how good this movie was. It didn't just win over animation fans. Like, this was on like a bunch of critics' top 10 lists for the year.
Bong Joon-ho and like Del Toro loved it. I think even like Hideo Kojima was like, hell yes, I approve of this.
Yeah, this was a mega hit, and I'm sure you can chalk some of its success up to, it being a streaming exclusive, but just imagine on Earth 2, where The Mitchells vs. Machines had a traditional theatrical release. Could you see this like being a box office success? Maybe not like as big as Into the Spider-Verse, but still popping like somewhere close to those numbers.
The Mitchells was just like that one movie in animation that broke barriers and preconceptions for a lot of people. You just don't get that every year with animated films because a lot of times it's just like, yeah, that was a pretty good movie, and that's it. The Mitchells just blew the doors down, and that's why I think it should be awarded the best animated feature. But again, that's the thing about 2021. It was a great year, and 2022 is just going to be like a big old death battle of what we are going to be seeing, like with what's coming out this year. So
2022 already is like off to a running start, but we're hitting one of those speed patches like you see in Mario Kart, starting as soon as our next episode. Now, due to the nature of this episode, recommendations seem a little bit redundant, but I do want to give a public service announcement to those who maybe aren't aware. Young Justice Phantoms is back on HBO Max. New episodes dropped on March 31st. The first 3 episodes of the second half of season 4 are now available. And, like always, this show is great. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the story play out.
That's awesome. I need to watch the new episodes also. My recommendation will come in the form of, at that time of the year it is. It's the spring anime season. It's finally started, and it's going to be the biggest of the year. Like, I think it's been counted that 29 new animated shows are coming out. Sweet Lord, that needs to slow down, but I digress. But something that's unique about this season so far, there were some real good shows right out of the gate. Even like the ones that are like the least of the ones that are released so far as of recording this were still pretty good. It wasn't just like, oh, the worst ones came out first and the others were middling and mediocre and then, oh, there's that one that's really good. Like we had 3 or 4 bangers right out of the gate. And what's hard about recommending one is which one to choose. Because we have Aha-Ren is Indecipherable. We have The Executioner and Her Way of Life. And Fanfare of Adolescence. And your boy Kong Ming. They're all unique and diverse in what they do. And like what kind of stories they are. But if I had to pick one to recommend, it would have to be Fanfare of Adolescence, which is about a ex-pop star who goes into wanting to be a horse jockey. And if you loved Salaryman's Club from last season or Bakuden from spring of last year, this is that show you have to watch. This is hands down so far one of the best sports anime first outings I've seen.
Nice.
It is so good, and you think it's like, do I really want to watch an anime about horse jockey racing? Yes, you do. You think you don't, but you do.
These are the kind of shows that I love in the sports genre. Any anime where the premise doesn't sound appealing, but then the first episode gets you hooked. Those are the anime I love, even more so than like your typical shonen or genres.
I think what helps is also like it's so distinct with its sport because horse racing is still very big in Japan. There are even video games about like horse racing, and it's like it's not just another soccer or volleyball or baseball anime. It stands out from the rest. And I would have recommended like The Executioner and Her Way of Life, and I do, but you have to go into that one blind. Do not look anything up about it. And then Aha-Ren is Indecipherable. It's just super funny. It's a delightful little, like if you like Don't Toy With Me Nagatoro, you will love this show. If you like Komi Can't Communicate, this is the show that you should watch.
I gotcha.
And then your boy Kong Ming, which is about a Chinese warlord who gets isekai'd into modern day Japan, is not only funny and creative, but it's also extremely heartfelt about just like, hey, don't worry about what may come in the future. Enjoy life right now. And like, it's so weird, but then you see it's by PA Works.
It all checks out.
Yeah. So I'm hoping for this one to be also good as well.
All right. I don't want to spoil everything we're covering next week, but one thing we will be bringing back is the Ghibli journey. We left off on the one Cameron and I were both dreading, but yes, we will finally watch Grave of the Fireflies. But until then, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Cam's Eye View. I have my own website called camseyeview.biz where I review animated films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. If you like my work and like to support me in some way, you can do it through there. I have a Ko-Fi account. I'm still working on it, so I just have to find time to work on it. So I'll make sure to plug that properly next time.
All right. And you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on Podchaser and the Banana Meter. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. that'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.